talking a little bit about the Central African Republic and the struggles that that country is experiencing right now. So Central African Republic, the word central means in the middle. So the Central African Republic is located right smack in the middle of the continent of Africa. I don't know if you guys know a lot about this landlocked country. I knew a little bit, but I knew that we were going to be talking about this conflict today, so I decided to do a little bit of a deeper dive and find out a little bit more information to give you guys a context or a framework about this country and what they're experiencing right now, because it is very, very different from the day-to-day lifestyle that I live here in the United States in Nashville, Tennessee. So just to share with you guys a little bit, Central African Republic is smack in the middle. It's a landlocked country, meaning that it's surrounded by land on its borders. And just to give you guys a little bit more of a context, so Central African Republic has been inhabited for over 1,000 years. It was primarily just local villagers who lived there until after about World War I, when it was governed by the country of France. So France came in and they ruled the country. And so one of the national languages actually in the middle of Central African Republic, in the middle of the continent of Africa, is French. So a lot of the local people there speak a combination of French and the local language that they all spoke before the French arrived. So France governed the Central African Republic until about 1960, and then they decided that the country wanted to rule itself. They wanted to represent themselves, and so there's been a big power struggle between different political organizations within the Central African Republic, because they all have different ideas about how they want the country to be ruled. They all have different ideas about who should be in power, what religion should be represented, and there's a lot of conflict and civil war that creates a lot of bloodshed and a lot of violence and a lot of really terrible things that we're gonna talk about. So, just to give you guys a little bit of an idea of what that looks like. So, you guys remember the word refugees? Okay. Does anyone remember what that word means that can share with us, Quantavion?
Refugee means when somebody is trying to go somewhere safe. Their country is like terrible, and people there's plenty of violence in their country, and they try to go somewhere that's safe where they can be safe.
Exactly. Great job. So the chances of them living a normal life where they live is just impossible, to the point where they just have to flee where they're living and live somewhere else. So in Nashville, in Davidson County, which is the county that we live in, we have about 659,042 people. The number of people that had to leave the Central African Republic just to be safe was 935,000 people. 935,000 people. So that's all. Imagine the entire city of Nashville had to pack what they could, and just leave town. You, your family, your neighbors, everyone you know that lives around here or within half an hour of here has to pick up and move, plus a city the third the size of Nashville just had to pick up and get out of here because it was just so unsafe to live there. That is a huge amount of people. That's almost 1 million people that had to leave their homes and get out of there. So my mind was blown when I realized there was that sheer amount of people. So I want to show you guys a little bit about who these people are. When the different groups, and the group that we're going to talk about today is the Seleka, they came in and they raid villages and they burn villages, and this is all because they want to be in charge of the country and they want to show how powerful they are. And they actually kidnap children and force them to become soldiers. These could be people your age or a little bit older than you who are forced to fight and kill their neighbors and kill people that are strangers. They're forced into a life that they were not able to choose for themselves. It's pretty scary. This is just to show you guys an example. These are some people that lived in a village, and they've all piled everything that they could on top of this car, and they're riding wherever they can just to get out of the city because it's that desperate of a situation for them to get out of there. So when I saw this little car loaded up with all these people, I thought that was pretty incredible. This is an example of a village that had been burned by the soldiers. So they'll just come in and loot just to show that they think that they should be in charge of the country. This is just to show you guys a refugee camp. We talked about this a little bit the other day, but this is just to show you guys the tent cities that these people live in. You can see that they all are forced into these really tight quarters, and they live together as best as they can in these makeshift little tent cities that they create. Over 1 million people live in places like this. This is just to show you guys, I wanted to kind of end this PowerPoint and showing you some of the more beautiful parts of this country, because we focus so much on the conflict that's happening right there and the struggles that the people are going through, but there's a lot of beauty in the country too. If they find a way to have a more peaceful future. This is just an example of how some of the traditional tribes dress. These are the Fula tribe. This is a village, and this is what a village might look like before they come in and loot and burn and things like that. But there's a lot of different terrain in the country of the Central African Republic. There's jungle, there's savannas, there's waterfalls. It's very different in the different areas of the country. So this is an example of some of the more forest regions there, which are very green and dense and beautiful. Here is a waterfall in the Mabali River. And they have a lot of, it's too dangerous for tourists or outside visitors who want to come and visit the Central African Republic. But if they are able to have a more peaceful community, it's their hope that they can build up their tourism so people can come and see the natural beauty there. And yeah, elephants that live there, gorillas, leopards, lions, cheetahs, rhinos, all different kinds of really exotic and endangered animals live in this country, but we can't go visit there right now because it's just too dangerous. So we hope that they are able to find peace. So I just wanted to show you guys a little bit about what it's like in this country. So with that said, we will move on to the article. Do they have this article yet?
No.
We'll hand that out to you guys. So we're going to read this article together, and then we're going to do a little bit of a review about the double bubble thinking map, and then we're going to have you guys create a new thinking map. I know that you weren't here the day that we went over the double bubble map. You weren't here either? Okay. But we'll review that, and I think you guys will be able to complete one. Thinking maps are a way to show about how we make connections and how we think. And they're a really useful tool when you're trying to compare two different things. So, as you can see, the picture at the beginning of the article is actually of a boy who was forced to be a child soldier, and he's holding a rifle that's actually been carved out of wood because he's performing a skit about what his life was like. So this says, a former child soldier performed a skit about his life with the rebels when officials from the UN Children's Fund visited the Central African Republic in March of 2014. His face is not pictured to protect his identity. During civil strife in the country, many children served as soldiers in the battles. So this is in Sebut in the Central African Republic. At the age of 14, Jordy isn't much taller than his gun. It was a way to protect myself. It was a way to survive, said Jordy, a former child soldier. I did a lot of bad things, he said, eyes downcast. I took people's things by force. The conflict tearing the Central African Republic apart has turned neighbor against neighbor. For many children, it has ended their childhood. Children have seen their parents killed and watched as boys and girls just like them were hurt. They have been forced to make decisions far beyond their years. Some decided to join the fighters who ruined their lives. Wow. So this is a pretty heavy topic, guys. I want you to know right now that the conflict has died down quite a bit. It was at the height of its violence in 2013 and 14. But this child has been able to leave the army that he was a part of. But it was a way of surviving for him to go along with the people who were harming him. So children left behind. Do I have a volunteer that can read this first paragraph? Go ahead, Antonia.
Children have been victims in virtually every conflict in this country. One of the poorest in the world. More than a year ago, a rebel group known as the
Celica?
seized power from the government.
Seized.
Power from the government. As many as 3,500 children were part of it. Other armed groups started fighting back, and the number of child soldiers grew to 6,000. Some children, like Jordy, were handed guns, while other children were made slaves.
Great job. So as I mentioned, the Celica is that group of rebels, or a group of people who are going against the government, and they seized or took by force power from the government. Thank you, Antonia. Do I have another volunteer to read? Go ahead, Anton.
Their children barely in their teens still are with fire. Even by day on threatening travelers on the road.
Go ahead.
Rifles and machetes or smoke over their shoulders, and these fighters have protected charms draped around their necks. The Selka left behind nearly 400 children with their wings were pushed from our engineering.
I'm going to pause you there for just a second. Okay, so this is talking about children and teens who were fighting. They fought with rifles and machetes, which were those big knives. And when Celica left power, that group of rebels, there were 400 children who were left behind with no one to fend for them because the Celica